Tonight, once again, we gather in search of the truth, dark, and mystery. It's the Drunk Turkey Show.
Big development today in the investigation into the murders of 4 University of Idaho students. According to state and local officials and court documents, 28-year-old Bryan Kohberger has been arrested. He was arrested and arraigned this morning in Pennsylvania.
We have new details on what Bryan Kohberger was doing right before his arrest. Police says a tactical team burst in to arrest the Idaho murder suspect. He was in pajamas and latex gloves, stuffing trash into Ziploc bags.
Hey, greetings from the year 3000. It still sucks. This is Philip J. Pride, and you're listening to the Drunken Turkey Show. Your one stop for this sort of thing. Hit that button, like and subscribe. You know what to do, just like every other podcast.
What is up, everybody? Big Blue, when was the last time you were wearing pajamas and latex gloves?
I feel like I do it almost every day for work, but they're not pajamas or scrubs.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Drunk Turkey Show. I hope you guys have had a fantastic week. It's the weekend now, or the weekend is upon us. It's been a long week for myself, and I'm just really glad to be here tonight and be here with you guys. If this is the first time you guys have been here, hope you like it. If so, please hit the subscribe button. For those in the chat, you guys do us a favor and hit the subscribe button or like button. We'd appreciate it.
We're almost to 50K, man.
Man, we keep teeter-tottering. We keep upsetting people that that maybe have an opposite opinion than us. Well, anyways, with all that out of the way, today's show, we're going to talk about, first and foremost, Detective Lawrence Mowery. Big Blue, did you know that the Secret Service looked into him?
I did not know that, no.
Well, this isn't breaking news. This has happened April 3rd, 2024. And good friend of the show, Tara Blue, actually, who sent me this. I had no idea that this was out. But yeah, the Secret Service looked into Detective Mowery, and they recognized him for his work in what is it? This cast stuff. Let's see. Let's read this. April 3rd, 2024. The U.S. Secret Service, USSS, formally recognized Moscow Police Department's Detective Lawrence Mowery for achievement in the field of digital forensics and cyber crime investigation. This past Monday, April 1st, 2024, during the regular city council meeting, Detective Mowery was honored in person by USSS Spokane office resident agent in charge Greg Ligori and network intrusion forensic analysis Neil J. Uhrig. So, what do you think about that, Blue?
I mean, that to me sounds like he knows what he's doing.
I think so. You don't just get recognized by, the Secret Service or anything, especially in this field, without knowing what you're doing. In fact, I think this talks a little bit about what he does. This says the Moscow Police Department has long been a partner with the U.S. Secret Service, and they have made cybercrime and digital forensics a priority. Oh man, so that's where Bryan Kohberger messed up as well. So in his thesis, or in his essay that he wrote to Washington State Police, or Washington Pullman Police Department for the intern position, was that he wanted to assist rural officers with forensic technology, data, and evidence collection and analyzation of that evidence. Basically saying that he wanted to teach these, backwood, rural, hillbilly cops, about technology, right? And so little did he know that department there had highly trained officers that were working with the U.S. Secret Service. Ain't that interesting?
That is pretty interesting, man. Sometimes they do pick smaller departments for a lot of reasons. Sometimes easier access to them compared to big departments where they're so busy. Sometimes they pick smaller departments to do certain trainings and to see how it worked in the real world.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right, man. They use some of these smaller departments for those reasons. But I think there's more to it. I think that, they probably had to have done something in order to get the attention as well. It's not just like, oh, we're going to pick these guys just at random. You know what I mean? When you're in law enforcement and you're a police officer, you're going to come across opportunities across the state, across the nation sometimes, to go out and train and get certain certificates and certain things. And so I wouldn't be surprised, and from what I understand, in 2019 and in 2023, Detective Mowery had gone and done an FBI CAS training thing, or he did a CAS training, and he was certified in that training. And so sometimes it's in those things as well that they start to see maybe perhaps, this certain detective doing really doing a great job with it. So then they start to then implement them into some of the things that they want to do. And so, the Secret Service isn't going to just call, throw a dart at it on a map and just find a small town. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, they have to be recognized and do something outstanding to get any acknowledgement.
Yeah. So this says, go ahead, Blue.
But the Secret Service had a fumble a couple weeks ago. I'm trying to remember where they were at, but one of them, even though they weren't, I think they were in the regular street clothes, one of them got mugged.
Where at?
It was when I was trying to say where Biden was visiting somewhere, and it was like the guy got mugged at the end of the night somewhere.
Oh,
I'm trying to remember where it was in my head. I read it in the report, but maybe somebody else had read it and they'll put it on there. But
yeah.
Pretty crazy.
It is crazy, man. There's been a lot of crazy stuff happening here recently. So this thing goes on to say, in 2022, Moscow police detective Lawrence Mowery entered the National Computer Forensics Institution, NCFI, training program by attending a 5-week in-residence basic school in Hoover, Alabama. So in the same year that Bryan Kohberger commits this crime, he goes into this National Forensic Computer Institute. And since then, he has continued to attend more training and has been a subject matter expert in the region on all things cyber. In 2023, Detective Mowery conducted more digital forensic examinations than any other NCFI trained graduate in northern Idaho, western Washington, and western Montana. He examined 261 digital devices with more than 66 terabytes of data. Now, we know 51 of those terabytes came from... No, I'm just kidding. Not all those 51 terabytes were in cyber evidence. That's a joke. The U.S. Secret Service is proud to honor Detective Mowery and his superior performance and his consistent dedication to excellence. That's pretty crazy, man. Good stuff.
Man. They're doing some good work. I think they are smaller areas, but I like that he's been acknowledged for that. It's not too easy stuff to be able to do, man, to be able to do a lot of the computer stuff, because I get lost trying to log into these programs and do stuff with y'all, so it's crazy.
It is, man. And like I said, it's odd, right? So this wasn't something that anybody had done in the area until 2022. So let's just say, again, if you can see in the a disclaimer below, everything's just speculation. Let's just say that Bryan Kohberger committed the crimes he's alleged to have, is alleged to have been committed. And he planned this out, and he chose this specific area because he thought that the forensic team in the area was poor, right? And so he thought he can manipulate his phone or whatever the case may have been to outsmart the local rural cops. But little did he know that at the time that he's researching if anybody has, those type of tools to their, repertoire, he's probably not seeing anything because it was recent. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I mean, he wouldn't have known that this case would have blown up this big. It's one of those things that a case might blow up, one might not. I mean, look what everybody's going over crazy online right now. They're all going over the hot Tui girl, There's T-shirts, stickers, and hats, and
yeah, we need to make a sticker or a shirt, Blue. It'll be the I already got ideas.
You gotta spit on that thing.
Hey, but keep it PG. Keep it PG. So, but with that being said, I just think that I think you have basically the endorsement of the Secret Service, just as Mark had said, especially in his work that he did in this specific case. I mean, I understand the defense has their expert witness, that they got, but it didn't really sound like he was aware of a lot of things in the case. And obviously he wouldn't be, just because the defense hires him doesn't mean that he's privileged to everything in the case. There's a gag order. There's only certain specific thing that he's privileged to. And so when he goes in and says like something to the effect that he knew, that the FBI knew where he was at, December 16th or December 19th or December 20th, when they pull that warrant to go try to find his current location. And he's like, you only do that if you don't know where he's at. And they knew where he was at, since earlier. And I think he's assuming that because of the Indiana stops that had nothing to do with the case. And I believe, and I'm pretty sure that it kind of went down this way, that they didn't know who Bryan Kohberger was until December 19th. That's why in Sergeant Payne's testimony, he stated that he didn't speak to that WSU officer that went and actually saw the vehicle. He didn't speak to that person until December 20th.
Yeah.
Which kind of saves the tail of the prosecution, because one of the arguments that the prosecution has is that they targeted on Bryan Kohberger, and that there was a specific point in which they decided that the vehicle was not a 2011 to 13 and it was a 2014 to 16, and they want to know when, because their assumption is that it changed because Bryan Kohberger became a suspect, and they want to know why he became a suspect, which boils back down to the IGG, which wasn't brought up in grand jury. And so they're trying to say that there's prosecution misconduct because they're lying about how he became a suspect. And they're trying to prove this all with the IGG. But what the defense or the prosecution has in their bag is the fact that WSU officers went out there and found his vehicle and listed it amongst the vehicles that they were out to go and find before the IGG came in. And so
I remember the first report actually were saying that, sorry, my dog's barking up there. The first reports were that one of the security officers found the car. It was one of the reports out there a long time ago. But then, we heard the story now how he was found.
Right.
So, it was in the mix. It wasn't just because of the IGG,
No. Well, they found that vehicle, but they didn't know it was his.
Yeah.
And, Payne didn't even know the existence of that vehicle until December 20th. And so when Payne goes up there and says, the FBI expert told us to find a car similar or the same as a 2011 to 1300 Elantra, the fact that they listed Bryan Kohberger's car before they knew who he was back on November 25th, because that was a vehicle that they went out specifically to go find. Remember, it was a certain officer who found the vehicle. He called his officer homie, he went out there to go and check on the vehicle. He found it, ran it, came back to Bryan Kohberger, but it had Washington plates at the time. So, what that says is that he's not lying on the stand when he says we were looking for a type of vehicle, which, could have been a 2011-13 Elantra, a 14-16 Elantra, a 2019 Sentra, Corolla of certain years. And so, and I think that's what made up like the 22,000 vehicles, because it wasn't 22,000 11 to 13 white Hyundai Elantras in the area. You get what I'm saying?
No, I get it.
And so, is that what you think too, Blue? Do you think that because they found that car before they knew who he was and they had it listed, that kind of proves that they were looking for a type of vehicle, not a specific vehicle?
I mean, again, it was just a, I guess they got a better view of it later, or maybe, like you said, they found out it was Bryan. They found out what year it was. But they had the model and the make and model, right? They just didn't have the year, which they all kind of look alike for a while. Mostly just the lights change.
Right. And it's not like, oh, they said it's a 2019 Sentra or 2011-13 Sentra. And now that they know Bryan drives a 15, they somehow manipulated it to look like a 15. That's not going to happen. I mean, the defense team has experts looking at it. They'd be able to tell if something was manipulated like that. So what it boils down to is, does that vehicle that they have on camera, can a 2015 Elantra be excluded from it? Can you look at it and say there's something on that vehicle that proves it's not a 2015? And if you cannot exclude it, then it's a possibility. You know what I'm saying, Blue?
I get it.
Detective Mowery is involved because he was the defense's star witness, because when they created the map that is on the probable cause affidavit that was presented to grand jury, he went in and used these textiles that he dragged from the AT&T CDR list into the CastViz under a default setting, which gave him that map. And he took screenshot pictures of it on his snippet tool, and he submitted those things as evidence for the grand jury. Now, the Ray is saying that there's missing stuff, right? He's saying that there's no test drive data between Pullman and Moscow, which Bryan Kohberger's phone was off or not connected to the network before he left Pullman. So if you get a test drive from there, like if you go and get that data, what are you going to compare it to? They don't have anything to compare. The same thing from inside the house. Bryan Kohberger's phone wasn't detected until he was miles south of Moscow near Genesee. And so I don't understand why they would need to, what would you compare it to? There would be nothing to compare. Do you get what I'm saying, Blue?
Yeah, even excuse me, even if they did do a model of the drive, that could be easy to be thrown out in court because it ain't proving it. They don't know exactly which way he went.
Yeah, and they're not saying that he went a specific way. What they're saying is
they haven't said it yet. They might know, but we don't know.
Right. I mean, well, it's true. They may know more now. They might know a lot more now. If his phone was connected to the network, it's a good chance that his apps were on. And so there's a good chance that, they talked about Gladiator, which was, I think, the technology that was used to get Alex Murdaugh. That was that stuff that told you where you were by the foot. And it would tell you if the phone was on landscape or portrait. It had a complete record of all those things. And so if his phone was connected to the towers, it means it's on, means those apps are on. they might know more and more precisely of where he was at compared to when they had the probable cause affidavit. You're absolutely right. And so, but when it comes down to this, in this situation, they were trying to say that because there was not that test drive data, that it was exculpatory somehow. I don't understand that, you know, and that was from what he was saying. And he said, if we get that data, it could be, you know, harmful for Bryan Kohberger. It could be harmful for the prosecution, and that he wanted to let everybody know that he has the right to change his mind.
Yeah.
And he also said that there is a way to create an accurate map if you, by only dragging the CDR textiles into CastViz, if it's in a default setting, which is exactly what Mowery said what he did. The only thing he said he changed was it was in Central Time or something, or Eastern Time. He changed it to Pacific Time.
Yeah. You know,
So,
I think they wanted an exact frame by frame of it, and like, well, I can replicate it for you, just the way I can show you how I did it. If y'all can do it too.
do what?
Make the map.
Oh yeah. I lost the first part. There was something going trying to figure out what that is. All right, so yeah, you're right. And he said that he could do it at any time. It's very easy to do. So all in all, I think that one, that probably should have been more publicized out there. I wonder why it wasn't. You know what I mean? Why we didn't get, you know, media on this information about how well this guy did. But it'll be interesting how the defense will try to attack, you know, him as an expert. But
I mean,
so
remember they wanted all the officers' training records. They wanted all the officers, you know, disciplinary actions that they've had, because they're going to try to attack, you know, their skills. So this might show that he's actually pretty skilled at what he's doing, and that might actually help the prosecution more.
Yeah. You know what? This is on Good Morning America. They might ding us for copyright. I'm gonna hide it, but we're gonna listen to this next clip here in a second. But yeah, no, I hear you, Blue. You know, all in all, you know, we're gonna have to wait till we get there. But I think when it comes to the cast information or whatever Detective Mowery did, I'm pretty sure it's gonna end up being okay in the end. All right, so what we're going to listen to is an interview with Howard Bloom in Good Morning America. He answers a few more questions and gives a few more hints of what's in his book that we don't necessarily or haven't necessarily knew about before, and or was stuff that me and him didn't discuss on our interview. So with that being said, let's listen to this portion of his interview with Good Morning America.
This morning, new reporting about the murders of 4 University of Idaho students detailed in the new book, When the Night Comes Falling, by author Howard Bloom.
The lucky break I had in this story is I got out there early. I went out before there was a suspect. And so I was able to talk with many people in law enforcement while they were in the hunt.
The book shares the months leading up to the murders of Xana Kernodle, her boyfriend Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogen, and Kaylee Goncalves, and then that horrifying night in November of 2022.
In your reporting, you come to the conclusion that Maddie was the target in this.
The authorities, in their mind, are convinced that the suspect came in through the sliding door on the second floor of the house. Right once you enter the kitchen area, there's a bedroom that Dylan Mortenson was in. On the left-hand side, the right-hand side was Xana's bedroom. If he was just on a killing spree, it would have been natural, instinctive to go to one of those doors. Instead, he goes up this narrow staircase and he turns directly into Maddie's room. And I think Maddie was his target.
So I'm gonna pause that real quick. You know, when there was, and I'm sure there's still some video that's out there, but when you were able to, I think there was this 3D virtual thing that you can look at, and you could get behind the house. Well, anywho, behind the house here, from that back area where I don't know if you guys can see my mouse back here, it does appear that if somebody parked there, Maddie's room would be the room that they would be looking into. And I think there's been a few people who have gone out there and have had that same thought when they parked out there, that you can see into Maddie's bedroom. In fact, there was, I think, some still images from news media where they had her boots and an M and things like that you could see in the window. And if she had her window, you know, the blinds were obviously down at this point, but if the blinds were up, you know, you could see in there. What he's saying does make sense. He goes up the staircase and directly into Maddie's bedroom. Do you think that that's an indication that Maddie was the target?
I mean, it's harder to say who exactly was the target is for me, because it could be, you know, it could have been if he was stalking the house. That's probably one of the better views you can get from the side, from that back parking lot area.
Mm-hmm.
But to know that both the girls are going to be in that room, it's tough. So it would go mostly by maybe who he, punctured more from anger and stuff like that, depending on the aggression. So that would probably give you more of an idea who the actual target was. We don't know any of those facts yet.
You know, I can say this though, with my sources, multiple. I have heard that the thought from law enforcement early on was that it was a one-person target, and that the theory of the source, I'm not sure if that was also the theory of law enforcement, so I don't know. And the source isn't who you think it is, but the thought was that kind of that they thought that the motive behind this may have been to go in there, kill one person, and leave out there in the middle of the night. Nobody know about it. Everybody wake up in the morning, find that one person gone, and there's this big old mystery. No evidence, no nothing. And that would have created a huge mystery case. That would have been a deal that would have been it would have been almost as big as what this is, if not bigger. You know what I mean? You know, just imagine 6 people in a house, one murdered upstairs in the 3rd bedroom by herself. Nobody knows when, nothing. You know, that I think listening to what he's saying now, I think that gives it a little bit more possibility, in my opinion. What do you think, Blue?
I mean, it gives you like a more thought answer where he could have selected the victim from. You know, maybe we saw him there, maybe even to a party. You know, I don't know, man. It's difficult to tell.
Yeah.
But you know, I've always wondered if it is him, what caused him to do that? Like, was it anger towards them, or was it, you know, just random? He random selected the house because it was close to the roadway, easy to get out of there.
All right.
Mm.
I need to edit your mic settings. Something keeps like sounds like a ding ding ding, like a bungee cord or something. Yeah.
I might be hitting my headphones cord on my leg. But...
Yeah, I mean, you might be. It's kind of weird. Well, anyways, yeah. If somebody says Robert says Steve said he didn't have to go upstairs in an early interview, and that's true. And we also have to look at the PCA, right? The PCA says that after Dylan hears what she thinks is Kaylee playing with her dog, she hears somebody say, "I think someone's here." Police suspect that that's Xana because she was on her phone until 4:12, and I think there's documentation of that. She wasn't just on what do you call it, watching a random TikTok that was playing over and over again. I think at 4:12 she commented on somebody's TikTok, so I think that's how they know, at least at that time, that she was awake and on the TikTok. So it's more than likely that it was Xana that was in there, and her saying that unfortunately may have alerted him. And I think that when you look at Kaylee, there's Kaylee, and it appeared that especially upstairs she was the one that got the worst of it. And then in Ethan and Xana's room, from the PCA, it sounds like Xana was left on the floor. Ethan, it sounds also like he was pretty tore up. The only one that wasn't torn up, the only one that had, from what we understand in foot, I believe, I read also from Howard Bloom. I'm not sure if, you got to take the information with a grain of salt because not all of it is firsthand. He didn't talk to Steve Goncalves. He didn't talk to Michael Kohberger, in my opinion. Well, with me talking to him, it didn't appear that he did, at least. And so, his information came third party. So if Maddie was like the least, and it was just a 1 or 2 kind of thing, and there might be some more, I don't want to say to me, it puts a little bit more weight into that theory. Let's continue to listen to this.
Do you think you can hear me better when I change the mic settings?
Oh yeah, dude.
Better.
100%. You should have done that earlier. What are you doing, Blue? What are you doing?
I had to check the mic when everybody said my mic was sounding weird. Because sometimes there's 3 mics on my computer.
You gotta start disabling some. Not just kidding.
Well, one's on my camera. My camera has a built-in mic, and then my laptop has a built-in mic. And this is a mic, so
yeah.
Make sure every time I change the settings, to change it back.
100%. All right, let's listen to this.
Sources tell both Bloom and ABC News that the 2 surviving roommates were using their cell phones to communicate during and after the murders.
So sources have confirmed to not just Mr. Bloom, but also to ABC News that the girls were texting each other during the murders and after. Does that worry you about anything?
I mean, that's kind of goes with the theory that Dylan did kind of check to see if everything was okay, and I think she heard from what's her name downstairs, Bethany, right?
Yeah.
So then she's like, all right, she's okay. Everybody else might be asleep.
Well,
just left her alone.
No, the rumors were, I don't know, you take this with a grain of salt because they're just rumors also.
Yeah.
That rumors, they can grow. They grow legs and run. But the rumors were that, oh God, what was I saying, Blue? I talked myself out of it.
The rumors about the phone communication.
Oh, yeah. The rumor was that one of them texted the other one, I think somebody killed them. So I don't know how true that is. Las Vegas, Layla says, who did Blum say he thought was the target? I missed it. Maddie. He said that he thought it was Maddie because he walked in. He didn't go down the hall. He didn't go into Dylan's room. He went straight up to the 3rd floor. I believe Kaylee's bedroom is actually closer to the staircase. What do you call it? The staircase that you're up there. I think it's the first room there. You have to walk across to get to Maddie's, and he went directly there. So he's thinking that was who the target was. All right. So do you think if they did text each other, do you think that's going to be an issue?
I mean, it's just going to be more issues for them because maybe they could have called sooner. That they would have gone and checked on them, and maybe one of them could have survived if they hadn't bled out. It just depends on how serious the injuries were. But to me, it sounded like they all passed away pretty quickly, except for the one that was on the floor.
Right.
Because it would have had to taken a little bit of strength to be able to get off the bed and end up in that position.
Now, if they were texting each other during and shortly after, the PCA says that Dylan originally was in that bedroom and saw Bryan Kohberger. Do you think that at some point in the night that she went down to the first floor with Bethany?
I would say, man, the door would have been closed, so she wouldn't have seen anything to alarm her if she did. So there's a possibility she did. But as I said, I always wonder if the police pulled their phone records and saw what they told each other. Because
They do.
I know. I wonder, said what's in there that they said that somebody might have been unalived or hurt, and then maybe that's why they took it pretty hard. But they would have taken it hard anyways. I mean, they lived together and they were friends, and they perished. So it's hard to there's going to be a lot of blaming and shaming these girls for if it did happen that way, which is going to be hard on them, man. So they already have it hard as it is.
Yeah, it definitely is. But this obviously is a traumatic experience for these girls. The police have gone through their phones. They've done all the work to clear who they are. The police don't care if the suspect is male or female or any of those things, because that was some of the stuff that came out early. Oh, if Dylan and Bethany were men, they'd be in jail. Not necessarily. I mean, they arrested Emma Bailey for the murder of one person, and that had to do with drugs and murder. So they had no problem arresting her. She was a young, attractive woman from the area. And so, I don't think that, it's a traumatic incident, right? Another traumatic incident that not a lot of, but some females face now and then, or common, I guess more common now than ever, starts with an R. Blue, do you know what the statistics are on those that go not reported?
A lot, man. It's out there, because I was just thinking about that the other day when we were talking about the Salvadorian cases. We've had a lot reported, but there's a lot that ain't reported, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And do you know that a lot of people, their first person they call isn't the police? If they call anybody. Now, I'm not comparing the two or anything, but I'm just saying that both are very traumatic, especially if they knew something bad had happened. Now, it's not an excuse. They should have called. But at the same time, you wouldn't blame, our victim for not calling 911 right away, or not preserving evidence by directly going to the police department, instead of, she probably feels incredibly bad and wants to wash everything off of her. Like, those things happen, and those things are common. And so this scenario, this was somebody else's life being taken. But at the same time, I mean, the trauma is probably way up there too. And I just, you wouldn't blame a victim for not calling or reporting something sooner. I think you should probably just ease up. There's no evidence at all that they had any intention in this or knew anything about it beforehand. Now, did they know something happened during the time? Maybe. But even if they called 911 based on the description of the injuries, all they would have done was caught Bryan Kohberger sooner. I don't think anybody's life would have been saved. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I was saying the way that the victims sounded like they were punctured, I'm going to say punctured instead of the other words, I want to getting knocked out. Sounded like it was not much of a struggle, that they passed away pretty quickly, except for one of them.
Well, I think all of them passed away pretty quickly. I think that all of them did. Now, you know, I think all of them did pretty fast. I know that there's some folks that saying, you know, for let me see, what was it? I think I saw something up here. Let me pull it up because I want to address this. So Deb says, I yet to see the video of the car. I don't think anybody has except for law enforcement and the defense. And we're not going to see it. And just because we don't see it doesn't mean that these footages don't exist. And just because we don't see it doesn't mean that there's some sort of grand conspiracy behind it. In most cases, like 100% of them, we're not going to see all the evidence until trial. So, unless you think every single case 100%, you know, those are folks who, you know, we should have seen it while they were awaiting trial, the evidence. That's not how it works.
This could be true here, man, because like if they're like my girls,
go ahead, pull it back up. I'm sorry.
If they were asleep for most of those 8 hours, and my girls, I can turn on and watch a whole movie, and they'll be laying there and they wouldn't even get up to look and see what movie it is. You know, so some people can't sleep through a lot of stuff, a lot of noise.
Yeah, I don't think that was the case though. I think that was so. What law enforcement said early on was that they got there at 1:45, and by 1:45 they were asleep, and they were woken up later that morning. That's what they said in their thing. They woke up later that morning. They never said that it was at 11 o'clock that they woke up. They didn't say anything. They just said that they woke up later that morning. If they fell asleep at 1 a.m. and woke up at 4 a.m, wouldn't that be later that morning?
It would, yeah.
Okay. So, you know, stop with this nonsense. All right. Deb says no DNA in the car, unalive 4 people, and no DNA. I think is what she meant on the second part. Right. You know, here's the thing, though. You have 4 victims, right? Those 4 victims passed away. I mean, this isn't a made up story. And the way their lives were taken was with a knife. Now that takes a person being really close to said victim, and the person that is doing this crime is exerting a lot of force to have done this. Now you expect to find sweat, hair, you know, eyebrow hair, something, right? But yet 4 times he was able to do this and get away without a cleanup. I think when you look at what's more likely, somebody with a knife in close proximity to their victim and exerting force against them in a short amount of time and having no DNA there, I find that less likely than a PhD student trained in forensics not having DNA in his car 7 weeks later. Right. You got to weigh out what's more than likely in those 2 scenarios.
Yeah.
And if he went in there and he was able to commit this crime. Now, remember, the bushy eyebrows stood out to Dylan Mortenson. I wonder if Bryan Kohberger put something in his eyebrows, you know, something to stick them. I don't know, Vaseline or something, so that they wouldn't fall off in such fight. And if that made them appear even bushier, or like noticeably bushy, you know what I'm saying? But so there's another case though. Porco out of Rochester, New York, I believe, somewhere around there. He drove 3 hours in his Jeep. He killed his father when he stood over him and bludgeoned him with an axe. And then he did the same to his mom, but she survived. He ended up leaving. There was no sign of cleanup, no sign of anybody showering or any of those things. The only reason they caught him is because he used the code to come into the door, and they have a picture of him in a toll booth. And when he threw his money into the toll booth or whatever, they got his DNA off the money, but they didn't get his DNA at the crime scene. They didn't get any of those things. Now, he drove back 3 hours after that, and they found no DNA in his car. Now, the reason they suspect that he was able to accomplish that, and he's been convicted and found guilty, by the way, but the reason they think that he was able to accomplish that is because he had access to, he worked at a veterinary clinic, and at that veterinary clinic, they performed surgeries on animals, and he had access to equipment that would protect him from getting blood and things of that nature on his person. Now, I believe that Bryan Kohberger has specific training in forensics on how not to take a scene with him and how not to leave a scene behind. So he would probably have similar access to certain, especially training and knowledge. And then again, we look at the extensive planning that went into this case. If we go back and we look at, for instance, Rex Huerman, he just had his blueprint found not too long ago. His planning didn't stop at the murder. His planning continued. He planned his escape. He planned how he was going to get away. He planned for the DNA stuff. Now, obviously, an engineer isn't as knowledgeable in forensics as a forensic-based PhD student, or maybe not forensic based, but that was what he was looking into and wanting to assist police departments, but a PhD criminology student who graduated out of DeSales. I think he has a little bit more training and ability and knowledge on how to not take a scene with him and how to leave a DNA behind. At the end of the day, the means is a big thing in this case. You have to have, people say motive, means, and opportunity, right? The means is the big one here. Who can go in there and commit 4 stabbings without leaving their DNA behind in a matter of 13, 12, 11 minutes? Who do you think has that ability? Some frat boy that's drunk, that's also roid raging, multiple frat people that have been drinking all night, a love-struck boyfriend down the street? I don't think so. Who can pull that off? Do you think a PhD student that has some training in certain things? Maybe. I do. All right, let's continue this.
According to testimony that was made to the grand jury, the 2 girls were communicating. They were texting one another, not just after, but at one point during the killings.
Bloom also writes about how members of suspect Bryan Kohberger's own family were concerned by his behavior leading up to the arrest. Sources close to the family telling Bloom his father Michael was on edge as he picked Bryan up from school that winter.
He's been reading the headlines. He knows that 4 students were killed just 12 miles from his son's house. He knows what a troubled son he has. The Moscow police issue a bolo, a stop order on a car that is a white Hyundai Elantra. He realizes my son drives a 2015 Hyundai Elantra.
According to Bloom's sources, Bryan's own sister later approached their dad, voicing her suspicions about Bryan.
I have heard this too by a lot of people, and that there's a lot to this avenue that he's talking about right here. Me and you, Blue, I think we've discussed it off air, but there's quite a bit behind that, and I think that there's going to be some truth to that, and we're going to find out.
She goes to Michael, and she says, Dad, in effect, we have a real problem. I'm starting to believe that Bryan could be involved in these killings. And what does Michael do? He can't confront it. He just turns around and walks away.
And shortly after that, on December 30th of 2022, Bryan was arrested at his parents' home. The Kohberger family not commenting on the claims in Bloom's book. Bloom also detailed.
Do you find that interesting that they don't deny the claims in Bloom's book?
Yeah, I think that's pretty interesting, but I think they just don't want to even talk about it.
Right, but if it was false, if it wasn't true, and you truly believe that your brother was innocent, wouldn't you say that those things are false?
Oh yeah, they would definitely try to get a lawyer and go after him for slander
Or libel, one of the two.
Yeah.
I don't know which one it is, but yeah, I find it amazing that they're not commenting on it. You know what I mean? Because if that was my brother and I honestly thought he was innocent and that he didn't do anything, I would be like, no, none of this stuff that he's saying is true. Look at the way the Goncalves are handling. They're saying that they haven't spoken to him. They don't, those type of things. I did speak to, or I not talked to, but I communicated with Steve, and he talked about my interview with Bloom, and he approved of it, and he thought he learned some things that he wasn't aware of. And so, for those that are like, oh, what does the family think about you interviewing Bloom? They had no problem with it. But to go back to this statement about the family not wanting to say anything about his book, the claims in his book, I think that's huge, Blue. Because saying that something's not true wouldn't violate any gag order.
Yeah. Oh, I know. And I think they're probably getting tired of the gag order. All the families are. I mean, I've seen that the moms of some of the other victims have came out and spoke a little bit now more.
Mm-hmm.
But, that's why I'm saying that this case needs to happen. But we got to wait until probably another year.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. I think that's pretty big, man, that they didn't endorse him.
At his parents' home. The Kohberger family not commenting on the claims in Bloom's book. Bloom also detailed Kaylee's father's tireless pursuit of answers, but the Goncalves family telling ABC News they have never spoken with Mr. Bloom about the contents of this book. For Good Morning America, Kana Whitworth, ABC News, Los Angeles.
So they have never spoken with Bloom. Guys, if you have your questions, put the stars in them. We'll be on here for a few more minutes. I'm not going to go back to the chat to look at anything that was behind. So if you asked something earlier and we didn't answer, put the stars in the chat. I'm excited about that book, man. I already pre-ordered it. I get it on the 26th because Amazon releases it on the 25th. But if you get it on the Kindle or the audio only or version of it, then you can get it on the 25th. I'm going to have to wait till the 26th. But I got my highlighter ready. I'm going to go through it. And I'm going to try to find out what, find out some things, see what he's saying, because he's an author. And when you go and look at the airmail articles, they come off as like short stories, and he puts a lot of, interesting facts that I call fluff to what I want to know, because I just want to know the facts. I really don't care what Payne, was chasing a wolf at one point in his life. I don't care. I just want to know about the facts of the case. But so I'm going to go through it, highlight those. I'm not going to give away everything because that wouldn't be cool. You're going to have to go get the book yourself to get everything. But we'll be going over that once it airs out. As Afton said, put some stars in front of your questions so we can see it. Or you can send in a super chat. Those colored ones that we see come in really nice. We can see them. They're bright, pop out. Art says, agree, guys. The Kohberger family silence is telling. In my opinion, one or more of the Kohberger family members is a confidential informant. Maybe. I'm not sure about the informant part, but or the confidential part, or both of them together. But it's possible. I mean, earlier this is the second time that we hear from a news source that the sisters may have said something and referencing of their belief that their brother may have committed a crime based on his actions and behavior, that they weren't normal. Like the glove wearing wasn't a normal thing for him. So will you get it signed by Bloom? I might ask him to send me one, but the one that I'm getting is I'm gonna highlight it, so I don't want that one to be autographed. But if he's willing to, I might email him back. He's the one that actually sent me this clip, this 3-minute clip about the book that we listened to. He emailed it to me this morning, said, hey, throw this out to your guys, your fans, and the viewers of your show. And I was like, yeah, man, I think it's interesting because there was some more stuff in that I wasn't aware of. So yeah. Oh, let's see. What do you think, Blue, as far as you gonna get a book, or are you just gonna listen to me talk about it?
I mean, I'll probably just listen to you talk about it. I don't have time to read a book right now, man. I've been doing a lot of stuff lately too. So, especially in July, I started another course. And I'm a slow reader, you know. I think your dyslexia is bad. It takes me like 2 times over to read a page. I'll start reading and I'll skip 2 lines and have to go back.
Dude, I'm just as bad, bro. I'm telling you, I got to read things like 4 times sometimes. Now, if somebody tells me something, like, you know, and I'm actually engaged into the conversation, I won't forget it. But if I have to read it, yeah, it's hard for me to read it.
Yeah, no, I know. That's why I like audiobooks. And yeah. Even in audiobooks, I'll start like dozing off, you know. I'm one of those people that can fall asleep anywhere, and calm voice will make me fall asleep, even though it's a book.
What about Olivia's recent arrest? Thoughts? I didn't even know she was recently arrested. Let me look that up. Did you know about that, Blue?
No, I didn't.
We find out things all the time. Let me see. I gotta learn how to freaking write.
Now, the other thing that they want to say before we jump out of here, I just want to say, I was listening to the news earlier. My thoughts and prayers go out to a family, man, in Houston. It's a family of Jocelyn Nungary. Maybe we'll do a story on her shortly.
What's her story?
She was a young girl that was went missing a few nights ago in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
Mom went to work, I believe, and she went out to get something from the convenience store, and then I guess mom was trying to reach her, couldn't reach her, started pinging the phone, and that same day, I guess she had reported her missing. The police found her under a bridge, and it's the one that the two I want to say El Salvador, the 2 guys from El Salvador did R to her and left her for dead under the bridge, and she passed away. And there's video evidence of them walking with her into the gas station. There's video evidence of them walking with her past the bridge, and then there's video evidence of them just walking past the bridge after that. And they got DNA samples, and they were able to match them to them. So.
Jeez,
is it Venezuela? I thought it was some for Venezuela, but I want to say.
Yeah, man, that's crazy, dude. I remember seeing that.
I thought the one in New York was Venezuela, but there was also one in New York. Same thing. Well, the girl didn't die, but they kidnapped like 2 girls after I think soccer practice, some kind of practice. They kidnapped 2 of them. They assaulted one of them, and they arrested those guys too. So, and then they were, the problem was both those cases they were all illegal.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and it's like the 5th case, that one of the media wings doesn't want to play out there, but I'll say it out there.
Well, I mean, Rachel Morin was the 2nd person up there in Harford County, to have been her life being taken by somebody who was here illegally. Yeah. It's scary, man. I mean, when they opened the gates, a lot of people saw that as an opportunity to come in. Not everybody was that saw that opportunity, or let me put it this way. Some of the bad people also saw that as an opportunity as well. And they're not from here, so there's like no record of them really. And so they're undocumented here and illegal. Like shoot, I mean, they had the DNA of this guy from a home invasion for Rachel Maureen since, from when he had assaulted a 9-year-old and her mother in Los Angeles, and they had no idea who he was. You know what I mean? So thank you, Afton, for gifting a one Drunk Turkey Show membership. We appreciate that. This Sunday, I'm going to do a members only live chat. The entire video is probably going to be just members only. And so, if you want to be a member, just hit the join button. We'd appreciate that. Usually I do it as a members only video, and it only, it'll air out on Spotify afterwards. But I'm going to go ahead and open it up to everybody, and you guys will be able to watch it. If you're not a member, you won't be able to comment. So, but thank you, Afton. We appreciate that. Regina asked, Blue, what are you studying to be? So,
I want to try to be a paramedic.
There you go. He's going to be a paramedic. He's going to come. He's going to be the knight in shining armor. He's coming to save your life.
Yeah, I got one of the courses down, and I got to get about 5 more courses down. So we'll see.
And if anybody can tell me or send me the link of this arrest of Olivia Goncalves, I couldn't find anything on it. I'm not saying it's not there, but I couldn't find anything on it. I think he's guilty from listening to you and Blue from the start of this case. Well, thank you, Linda. We appreciate that. To me, I didn't always think he was necessarily guilty. I always thought he did it, or more than likely did it. But earlier on, I was a little bit concerned because the way the PCA is written, it does sound like when they say that he connected to a tower in Moscow, but he wasn't there. Then you're like, well, that's kind of, defeating the purpose there, right? It's saying that it's not very accurate. But this, we read that wrong. It was just saying that he wasn't there. He was close enough to be connected to a tower, but he wasn't in the city of Moscow. And it's also attesting to the accuracy of the locationing of the cast. And so I'm sure they can probably have him somewhere and can prove he was there, and that's why they put that in the PCA. But early on, I was concerned just as much. And then once we found out that that Idaho's lab was the one that found the DNA on the knife sheath, and what was sent to Othram was for them to do a genetic tree on the STR profile and not for them to find the DNA. I know Howard Bloom came on the channel and he said that here recently also. That's his opinion. I don't think that that's accurate, in my opinion. I think they sent it over because they needed to do the genetic tree. And the reason why I think that is, if that other lab is the one that actually did find it, it would have to be in the probable cause affidavit. It would have to be in there. And it's not. And so the reason it's not is because it was the genetic stuff, the IgG. So, when I realized those things, that's kind of when I was like, yeah. And then you just kind of look at the probable cause affidavit and just kind of break it down for what it's saying. And then you look at some of the warrants that have been released and some of the things that they have found. You look at the defense's approach to the case and how weak it is. I mean, they have no supporting evidence for Bryan Kohberger being, in Wallawai Park or anywhere else at 4:00. Nothing. There's a claim. They're alleging that he committed these murders and his phone was off or phone not connected because he was committing the murders. And they have, his phone turned on. He's south of Moscow, not south of Wallawai Park. You know what I'm saying? So, I think they can allege, and they have some evidence. They have his DNA in the house, the car driving around. And all he is saying is, I was out driving around looking at stars in this park with no supporting evidence whatsoever. No, man. I don't know. Miss 101 says, where I live, they just prosecuted a R man that had been at it for decades with a genetic tree. Can't love it enough. Yeah, that genetic stuff is going to come in and really start, putting some people behind bars.
Oh, the lady that runs the Texas facility is saying she would love to work on more and more cases. It's just expensive. It's expensive to put in the man hours and to rebuild the genetic trees, and um, but if they get funding from from the government that they're applying for, there'll probably be more unsolved cases being solved, which would be good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's a good thing. You want to get these people off the streets. And I was also sent, was it an email? And I got to look it up, but there's already precedent in, I guess, with the FBI looking at genetic stuff, right? And properly looking at some things that they shouldn't have. I don't know the case. I need to look it up the case, but I was made aware of a situation where FBI used match GED or something like that, and they went and they looked at people who didn't necessarily want to be involved, right? And so I think the judge had ordered that just because match GED allowed the FBI to do that, that has no bearing on what the outcome was. That it is up to those individual people whose rights were violated by match GED for them to go after them.
Yeah, it's a civil lawsuit.
Yeah, so there's already precedent. It's not in Idaho. I got to find the case. I saw it earlier, and it makes sense to me. I think I trust the person that sent it to me. So, and so with that being said, I think regardless of anything, I think the DNA is going to stand. Which, at the end of the day, why wouldn't you want it to? If you truly want to get, the right person, wouldn't you want all the evidence, whether it's for or against Bryan Kohberger, to be out there, including the DNA, including the IgG? I agree. They should give it to them. You know what I mean?
No, I know. At the end of the day, if it is him, like say, he's not guilty yet.
Dyslexia strikes again.
GED meds. Hey, some people they got those and they're still making people proud, man. It's still an accomplishment.
Yeah.
But no, what I was trying to say was, at the end of the day, like we had somebody on the show that was from the area last time, and I told him, at the end of the day, if he's the wrong guy, ain't you worried that there's somebody out there that committed these crimes? So I believe they got the right guy, and I'm glad that person that was able to commit these type of crimes is behind bars if it's him. But we'll find out later.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right, man. Looking at a couple of chats here, or not super chats, some of these chats here in the live chat. Heather says, yes, the FBI may have violated terms, but it isn't a violation of the arrested person. Correct. The civil liberties issue is a secondary in this case. So you look at what they're arguing. Again, they're arguing the IgG, and they're arguing the accuracy of the cast, right? I believe that's the argument so far. Don't seem very robust to me of an argument for this defense team.
I think that I've seen a lot of people get through the Innocence Project get released because they were falsely arrested and the DNA released them. Mm-hmm. So, it's a good thing. Sometimes people say it could be a bad thing just because your DNA could be on there for another reason. You know what I mean? Like the case where the man was arrested because the EMT or the paramedic worked on him and then accidentally still had it on him when he touched the door handle or touched him. So there could be transfer DNA. So it's just on some of those old kits, they're running. They found the actual DNA in there when the other person's DNA wasn't on there. It was just visual description.
Yeah.
And wrong guy, wrong place. And they've been claiming their innocence since day one. Bryan is not doing that. He's not claiming his innocence. I mean, he said he was going to get exonerated, but he's not out there, telling a story to the world that he's innocent and he's behind bars.
Yeah.
Those are the cases that I am more aware of that, they got the wrong guy.
Yeah, but you have people that claim they're innocent and cry and do all these things, and they also committed the crime.
Yeah, no, that is true.
To me, I don't care if the guy claims he's innocent or doesn't claim he's innocent. It's what does the evidence say? I'm very evidentiary. I don't care about feelings or anything like that. I care about what does the evidence say? Does the evidence prove this way or not? If you're claiming it's not a 20, it's a 2013 Elantra, that's what they have. Well, then bring your expert that says that it can't be a 2015. It is impossible to be a 2015 yet. We haven't seen that yet. We don't have any experts of that need. And then I know American Princess said that Bill Thompson protective order said that the forensic lab made the STR profile. The probable cause says it. The probable cause says that the Idaho lab discovered the STR profile. It doesn't say that it sent it off to anywhere. And if they had and they put that in the probable cause affidavit, then we would be hearing about that argument. But the fact that we're not hearing that tells me that didn't happen. You know what I mean?
I get you. I mean, that's just no.
Nah, you don't want to do that, dude.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the story here in locally that I know of, where the gentleman had served, I think, maybe 20 years in the mental facility because he went crazy and essayed somebody. And not essay. Well, he did that, but he also, killed somebody. And they let him go because it was older. They didn't think he was going to do anything. He ended up killing his own parents. He went crazy again. So,
yeah.
There's...
So this is, they're not really arguing that. They're arguing to see the OGIGG work and not rework after resubmitting the profile, not work after the arrest. That's the real argument. Well, the reason also, the whole thing, the actual argument from the defense is they want to know certain timelines of things because they want to be able to prove that the IGG was the reason they targeted Bryan Kohberger. And if that's the reason they targeted Bryan Kohberger, then the police lied in grand jury when they said that it was because this officer in WSU Police Department or whatever it was, he's the one that found it on November 29th. And that information got to Payne and he saw the bushy eyebrows. I mean, obviously that's not true. I don't think so, in my opinion. But that's what they, that's how they put down that they were able to connect the case to him. They had to find a way to connect it. If you can't use the way you found it, that doesn't mean the case is thrown out. You just have to find a way to do it legally, right? So, for instance, if I called anonymously and said it's Bryan Kohberger and hung up and they didn't get my information, that doesn't mean that they can no longer investigate Bryan Kohberger. He's free. Somebody called in and we don't know who they are. So, no, that doesn't happen. And so what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to create or a psychic. If I was said I'm a psychic and that's what it is, you're not going to see the psychic stuff in a probable cause affidavit. So what they're going to do is they're going to be like, all right, well, let's just see where this goes. We got to try to find something legally. Right. And then you build your case there. Now, their argument is that they lied to the grand jury. And because of that, that's prosecutor misconduct, should get the grand jury thrown out, release Bryan Kohberger. And it just kind of goes back to like they're trying to get the grand jury thrown out. I mean, that's what their biggest freaking argument is, and it's weak. You know what I'm saying, Blue?
I get it. Yeah, I was looking for another story, but I can't find it.
Yeah. It's all good. It's all good.
There's
But
a lot of stories that are out there, man, that are just sad stories that we don't even get to talk to because, it takes a lot of time to research all the information on these, and some of them are a little bit older. But
no. Well, guys, I couldn't find anything on the Olivia stuff. Let me check my email real quick. Maybe somebody did email me that. If you know or have that, I mean, I want to be accurate. I don't think it has anything to do with the case. If she got arrested or not. Like, what does that have to do with Bryan Kohberger and these 4 victims? You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Yeah. Just because something happens doesn't mean that it was affected or was the cause of the murders. You know what I mean? Like for instance, I've seen people looking in at all these like body cam footage of things that aren't related to the case. Like somebody stole a sign or something, and they're looking at it real close, like, oh, this is a killer. This is the killer. I'm like, dude, what evidence do you have? Just because somebody's name brought up or just because somebody's there doesn't necessarily, something different that's unrelated doesn't mean it's related. You know what I'm saying? There's things that happen. When I was a police officer, I got a call for something. And at the same time, other officers got calls for other things that were not related in the same town and such and such. So I just don't get the connection there. But I will, look at it. And if, it's for something crazy. All right, here it is. Canadian True Crime Buff actually sent this to me. So controlled substances, disorderly conduct, disturbing the peace, violation, agent's warrant. Let me make sure I'm reading this right. Inmate, no, that's not even the right person. My bad. That's Stephanie Joe Barr. All right, domestic battery. So she got arrested for domestic battery. And this was out there in Katuani County Sheriff Office. So I live near Coeur d'Alene, I guess. So, okay. She got into a fight with one of her family members. Doesn't mean anything I don't know how that would affect this case over here. Or does that mean all of a sudden she shouldn't have justice, or the family shouldn't have justice because her sister got arrested? I don't see the connection outside of people just trying to hurt these people more than they already been hurt.
Yeah.
She screwed up. She got arrested. She's going to have to pay for what she did. Now, I don't know what she did. I'm not even going to ask. Because to me, it's not relevant.
Just like Justin Timberlake with his DWI, he's going to have to deal with he's going to have to deal with the consequences.
Dude, they were showing one of his dancing stuff that he was doing, where he's dancing kind of funny because he's obviously much older than he was back in the day, and he's still trying to show those moves. And they were saying that this was him doing his standardized field sobriety test, his walk and turn and stuff.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So
I heard about it, and I was like, man, I haven't heard of him in a while. He didn't even made a movie in a while too. True.
This is gonna be the last thing that we'll talk about. The Richard says, wonder how all the Brady Giglio cases will affect the BK case. Well, I think it depends on who these persons are, right? And what effect they had in the case. Obviously it wasn't Detective Payne or Mowery or the officers that we're aware of. Now, the rumor has it, I think one of them was one that went to the autopsy. I'm not sure how him, being at the autopsy could have any effect in the case. They didn't find the knife sheath at the autopsy. They already had that. They already had the DNA and the CODIS or whatever by then. And I think one of the other ones may have been one of the officers that responded. Well, he wasn't the only officer that responded. And I think that was the only, I think that they were outside the entire time. And so you have to have relevance. Just because something happens and, with one officer, even these officers within the department, what does it have to do with this specific case? And if their involvement was merely tips and, securing the outside perimeter of the victims' homes at the time of the murders, or at the time of the discovery, I don't get where that's going to have an effect. And, if the thought is that one of these officers, because, they have a Brady Giglio thing on them, that they planted Bryan Kohberger's DNA, they would have had to have had it upon arrival. Like, I don't understand how they would have had it, why they would have had it, how they would have even known who he is. And they would have had to have planted it then, knowing that it was going to go unsolved. So they have to plant somebody's DNA, right?
You might hear some booms, and Tony, because of the, I think SeaWorld's fireworks are going off, and I can hear them.
Yeah. It's all right. It's also the booms that I'm making on this case. So, it just doesn't make any sense. It's not logical. It's not reasonable to believe that they somehow knew ahead of time that they were going to struggle to figure out who committed this crime. So they had his DNA in a test tube just driving around with them in case they came across a horrible incident. Where does that make sense? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that won't affect them much. I think that's just like they gotta try to pick at flip every stone over, try to see what's under there.
And I believe, right, but I believe one of them was one that they didn't have anything to do with the case. They don't intend on using him as a witness. That's why they were like, why do you want his training records and stuff? Like, that's like saying, all right, Blue, somebody passes away on your shift, right? And you went in there to save them, and they do like an autopsy, and it comes back it was natural causes. But now people are thinking that you're suspicious because at one point, one of your colleagues did something kind of suspicious years ago. So now they're looking at you as being suspicious.
Yeah.
How does that make sense? How does the actions of one person at some other time affect the actions of these other officers who are actually investigating this case?
It shouldn't, but
it doesn't. And you know what? I guarantee we're not going to even hear about those things when it comes to trial.
Yeah, like I said, they're just flipping every stone they can.
And they're trying. I mean, when you don't have anything, you throw mud at a wall to see what sticks, right? Well, guys, I appreciate everybody that tuned in. Blue, you have any final words for everyone?
No, y'all have a good night. My thoughts and prayers go out to the family out in Houston, to the family out in New York. It's sad. See, in that case, I don't get it. It was like midnight and she was out going to the convenience store by herself. So, but it's still sad that she didn't make it home.
Yeah, it sure is, man. I mean, to be honest with you, bro, when I was 12, 13, me and the homies were riding our bikes the weekends till midnight.
Oh, yeah. I mean, summertime, I get it. We were too.
So, it is what it is. I mean, it's not what it is. It's a sad situation, and there needs to be change. And, well, there needs to be change at the top, too, for that change to happen. You guys have a great night. We'll see you guys probably on Sunday. Until next time, peace out, y'all.